Two. Hello and welcome to Tabletop Cafe. Think of us as your roadside cafe along your tabletop journey where we serve up bite-sized chunks of gaming goodness that you can use for you and your friends at your game. I am Michael, and tonight we are here to talk a little bit about GenCon 2025, which I had the chance to go to. Joining me as always is Chris.
I am Chris.
And join us,
glad to be here.
Kind of as always at this point, I think he's just our forever third, which we were happy to have, is Lewanika.
Hi, I'm Lewanika.
So first of all, Lewanika, have you ever been to GenCon?
I have never been to GenCon. In fact, I would say that the largest pure gaming convention I have been to in my life has actually been a Catacon.
Oh,
Most of the game conventions I've been to have been that size or slightly smaller, like basically around that size.
Okay.
Generally, 3, sometimes 4, and by 4-day ones, it's more like Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That general size, regional con size, is about the most that I've been in attendance.
Okay, because that was kind of what was going to be my follow-up is what is the largest convention you've ever been to? So that's, you go to a lot of conventions, but it doesn't seem like you've gone to any that are really massive. And I think that, they all have their don't like, wish could be better, enjoy that they are the way they are, Catacon along that as well. Now, Chris, you have been to Gen Con before, right?
Just once.
Because I remember meeting you for the first time, and Kaylee. Well, actually, I can't remember if the Chicago thing was first or that, but I can't remember. Was that Gen Con or was that Origins where we played that game together?
Origins.
Okay, but you did go to Gen Con one year.
Yep.
Okay.
So I think same year I went to Origins.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it was the next year.
I can't remember anything.
Yeah.
So what is
That's probably why they conflated together.
Yeah. So what is your thoughts about Gen Con? Like, it is the largest gaming convention in North America. I think it's the third largest in the world, if I remember correctly, or somewhere along there. This year was the largest ever, 72,000 unique attendees. They sold out all 4 days. Different, there were no badges available weeks leading up to it, which is the first time that's happened in a long time. But what is your overall opinion or thoughts on Gen Con?
So there are things I liked. There were things I didn't like. Some of the things I liked, I loved all the food trucks. That was nice to have a variety of food. Because a lot of times at conventions, you're stuck with, pizza or, strange sandwiches or driving
Prepackaged
somewhere.
salads.
Yeah. So it was nice to have that, plus all the restaurants you could walk to. I liked seeing that many people all gathered to do that. It was nice to stand on, Lucas Oil Field and kind of smile and think, hey, this is where the Indianapolis Colts play. This is where major concerts are. And here we are, a bunch of nerds playing games.
Bunch of nerds playing games.
Yeah. Same place that, usually has the opposite there. So it's kind of neat. I'm not the biggest fan of crowds. So like going into the vendor hall gets me a little overwhelmed. I like having my space. I like to move a little bit. And that was a little rough. Also being crammed in some of the rooms where everything was so loud, you can't even hear the person next to you. That takes away a lot of the experience for me. But what I really liked was just hanging out with people afterwards. Every night I went to a different restaurant, bar, grill, hotel, wherever people were meeting, and played games, got to meet new people, talked about gaming, and just had a good time. The games I played in were okay. Lucky for me that year, I got to run Star Wars twice, and somehow I ended up in a small room in a very off-the-path hotel, and there was only one other table in the room, and both times nobody else was there. So I did have, when I got to run games, it was great. I could hear everything. But sometimes when I played games, it got a little loud.
Yeah.
I'm also not the guy that needs to go there to see the Gen Con exclusive swag or merch or anything like that. I liked watching the costumes. I'm intrigued by how people make those and the time that they spend in them. to make them and the time they spend in them too. But that was kind of neat. Maybe not necessarily my thing, but I think it's neat to watch people do that.
Yeah, you can admire the craftsmanship and the
Mm-hmm.
passion that goes into it. Like I don't particularly, like certain sports, I prefer watching football to like, baseball, but I can, I can understand these are the best baseball players in the world. Or these are the best, swimmers in the world type of a thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, it was a good time. I just haven't been back because of life keeps kind of grabbing me.
It's expensive. It's in a weird time of the year for a lot of people. So I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the larger cons, expense is pretty much the major reason why I have not been to many of them. As I frequently say on the main show, I'm the father of 6, grandfather of 5. It is not cost effective for me. It has not been for many, many years to go to a lot of cons. My wife and I, we are now empty nesters as our youngest is 19. He's out of the house. So that's why in the last year and a half, I've been able to go to more conventions. However, we're still not at the point where I can afford to fly halfway around the country, drop hotel stay, and drop extremely large amounts of money for a 4-day event. That's just not something where we're at this moment. What I can do and what I have been doing is going to a lot of regional cons where, generally speaking, a lot of the cons, at least here in New England, if you run games, you get money back, refunded effectively for the games you run. So, for example, if I run 24 hours worth of games at most of the cons I go to, my weekend pass is free. Mm-hmm. So that's generally how I'm able to afford the hotel. Because in my experience, I can put the money into the con or I can put the money into the hotel stay. So I tend to go somewhere if it's slightly outside of commute range. Then it's like I'm running games the entire weekend to cover the cost of the con, and I try to break out 1 or 2 sessions where I get to play. Mm-hmm. Generally, my youngest comes down and joins me, so we get to play in a couple games together, and I get to meet folks and do stuff.
Yeah, I completely understand that. My process ever since the first one has basically been we just shove as many people into the hotel as we can to make the costs as cheap as possible. Like, we talk about we're basically in there assholes to elbows, and no matter how many people, I'm always just gonna be on an air mattress in the corner. So I'm like, you can put 12 people in there. I don't care. How cheap can we make this? And again, I'm very privileged. I've been able to go to GenCon every year but one as press. They've offered me press badge. I went this year as press, so I don't have to pay for my badge. My hotel is cheap because we have so many people in there. And then I'm a foodie, not really, but like I don't just like pack sandwiches. I go out and have dinner just about every night, or like a good lunch. We talk about Weber's French onion soup is one of the best French onion soups in the world. To me, I love it. I think this year was a light year. I think I only had it 4 times over the 5 days technically that were there. It's usually closer to 8. So that's just the way that kind of I roll. But I go particularly for role play games. Like that is the thing that I do. I know, like I go through the vendor hall a little bit. I check out some of the new games, just things I'm interested in, but also for a catacon, like, what we might want to get for the game library. But 99% of the time that I am there, it is to play role-playing games that I cannot play easily on my own or where I live or with the people that I know, that type of a thing. And then also, just like I think Chris mentioned, just hanging out after hours with my buddies. That is absolutely integral to me in what Gen Con is. And we try to maintain that. Probably the biggest change we did this year is we truly made a concerted effort to play games together. So there's like 7 of us. And if you kind of our extended family, there's like 12 of us that go almost every year. And like we could make that happen, but like we tried almost every event to have at least one other person in that event that was from our group, and didn't work out 100%, but we definitely made the effort this year. And I'm usually the outlier, if I'll be honest, because I'd like to just try new weird games. So I just like focus on what I'm trying to get into, and then other people, if they want to join, they can. This year I was a little bit more like, what do you guys want to do? Well, what are you into? Maybe I can join in with you, that kind of thing. But with that, I wanted to go through some of the games that I got to play, talk about some of the good and the bad, and maybe call out some of the really good or maybe could be better GMing that I saw there, as the folks at home could maybe use that on their own running or when they're looking for games, type of a thing. So I guess I can start, but are there any questions up front about Gen Con, about me, my experiences, my desires, things I'm into, to sort of set the stage, or do you just want me to jump into the games I played?
I say jump right in. I do have a question at the end, but I'll wait till you go through it all and kind of looking at how did this Gen Con 2025 rate versus the other ones you've been to.
Okay.
But that's an end of the discussion kind of well, let wrap it up kind of question. So
Okay, and I think hopefully one of you is watching chat. If we happen to have anybody in, I know we usually have 1 or 2 people hanging out with us. If we have questions, I'll happily entertain those if I can. And obviously, you can ask questions of any of us about future or past cons, if not this particular Gen Con. Chris, do you have anything off the top before we get into it?
No, go ahead and jump in.
Okay, so officially Gen Con, the gaming starts on Thursday. It's sort of its tagline is it's the best 4 games best 4 days in gaming: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But most people, a lot of people, I should say, show up on Wednesday, and so Wednesday is technically what is known as a trade day. So you can get a trade day badge, and this is for basically industry people, whether it's game designers, publishers, those creatives type of a thing. But there is some gaming that happens on Wednesday. A lot of it's off the books. This is something that we used to do for Catacon. We would actually run just an open gaming thing on Wednesday night. But if you look around, you can find a few games to get in on Wednesday, and that's what we did. We actually played in a Fantasy Age 2nd edition game, and by happenstance, my second game of the week, which was on Thursday, was also a Fantasy Age 2nd edition game. Both of them set in Freeport, which is like a pirate sort of city setting that's, goes back to a D&D 3.5. They're kind of doing like a relaunch. I think they're going to come out with some new books. So there was kind of a Freeport push this year. Different adventures, different GMs, but both were Fantasy Age 2nd edition. I've played Fantasy Age half a dozen times. I really kind of dig it. I don't love it, but every time I've played it, I've had fun. Have either of you played Fantasy Age or any of the Age games?
I have not.
I have not. I'm familiar with them in description, but I've never had the opportunity really to get a chance to play. Whenever there's a table that had an opening at any con I've been to, I've been running at that time. So it's like I always just missing it at almost every time.
So there's a couple different flavors. Dragon Age was the first. It was based off the very popular video game. Then they made Fantasy Age, which was like a generic setting version that used the same rule system. I think there's a Modern Age, which is like, cops, robbers, mafia, Black Ops sort of current John Wick sort of style. But one of the key elements is use 3d6. And then you have one die that is unique, different color, different shape. However, you need to know which one is which. And that die can have special effects depending on whether you succeeded or failed and if you have any doubles. So it doesn't, the stunt die does not have to participate. So you could have like a 5 and a 5 and a 2, and your 2 is your stunt die, but it still generates stunt points if you have any set of doubles. Does that make sense? So that's one of the kind of the key elements of the game. There are stunts primarily for combat. You can get extra damage. You can get effects like knocking people prone, disarming them. You can do extra damage. Sometimes you can do like a skirmish where you move them or you move out of the way. But there are also role play stunts. So maybe you get a very, witty repartee and like everyone in the crowd's like, whoa, cut to the meme of everybody reacting as if you just got like a great dig on somebody, or you just, you made a joke that caused everybody, the person you're talking to lose status. There are exploration stunts, like you might uncover an ambush and you can ambush the ambushers, or you get through an area quicker than it was supposed to take. But the idea is anytime you're making a check that is not a reaction. So initiative doesn't count, like a sort of, it's not really a save and throw, but kind of save and throw style stuff. Those don't generate stunt points, but if you're asked to make a check, you can. I would say, so the first game, it was all RPG Academy folks. There were 5 players and it was all from my group, which was awesome because we had a ton of fun and we were being silly. But I was the only person who'd ever played Fantasy Age before, and all the other players kind of universally agreed they didn't feel there was anything unique about that system to justify playing Fantasy Age. And the second day when I played it again, different GM, different scenario, I was the only player from my group. And I thought that GM did a much better job of utilizing what makes Fantasy Age special, primarily the stunt system. So I felt that the second GM did a better job of saying, this is why this system is cool. And I think the biggest point, there are 2 things that happen, and I've played enough Fantasy Age to experience this, that the majority of the time in the first game where we generated stunt points, they didn't matter. They did not have any sort of appreciable effect because they were non-combat. Like we were doing investigation checks, we were doing like perception rolls, and we could have found a way to use them, but it would have just been sort of like extra. Like it didn't really have an impact in the moment. I think I've talked to you, Chris, about the same way, like in the Genesis system in Star Wars, where sometimes you get you fail, but you get a little boon, or you fail or pass, but you get a little setback. There are times when that's super cool. And there are times where it's like, can we just say I get a +1? Like, I don't want to think for 5 minutes on how this makes sense. Almost every time we generate stunt points, that was the situation where it just wasn't worth the effort to the moment. So then it just sort of became like, well, do these ever matter? And it was the nature of the game where we generated way more stunt points outside of combat than in combat, where they're kind of the most applicable in a con game. And I don't know that the GM necessarily did anything wrong, but they also didn't take a moment to stop and say, this is why we're not going to spend 5 minutes to do it. This is what some of the things you could have done. And it just kind of fell flat to everybody. We had fun. The adventure was a ton of fun. We really got into that, but the system didn't sing in a way that made any of us feel like we need to play Fantasy Age again. Does that all make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. That seems somewhat familiar with a few experiences I've caught on Reddit about the Star Trek game, because it uses the meta currency of threat momentum or whatever. And I know we have forever been planning a time where I'm going to run with you and Chris and a few others. So be on the lookout. We're going to have to get that scheduled here soon.
Please.
But what I can say is what I've experienced, and I did not experience it during the first year I was running it, is how to make those meta currencies really work. I am much better at that now 3 years in than I was 1 year in. So there's a little bit of GM learning curve as far as how to use that. Now there's a lot of great experience and advice between the different groups, between some of the various publications, but straight out the box, right out of the core, I think the game is awesome and amazing, but it is different enough that you do have to structure your adventures in a slightly different way than you might have structured other sci-fi games. And you just have to know how that works, or talk with people, maybe have played in a few games to see how those systems work. And I get the sense that that's kind of what your experience was. Like if somebody who's done that kind of, I don't want to say work, that makes it sound much more difficult than it needs to be. But if someone's got a little bit of experience under their wing, they can really bring out what makes the system cool within their adventure, versus add an adventure to system Y from system X and it should be at least okay. That kind of thing.
I think if I had any negative or critical feedback to offer the GM, who I think didn't do it as well, is it kind of rolls into the don't ask for a roll if it doesn't matter. You know, if success or failure, neither one are interesting, then just say it happens. We were being asked to make rolls where there was an equivalency there where like he wanted to make sure that we saw a thing. It was like an investigation. Did you notice a thing? But there was nothing about it that the stunt points could really add on to. So I feel like either don't ask for that roll and just say, you spend some time investigating and this is what you find. Or if you're going to ask for the roll, you've got to say stunt points matter. Otherwise, we shouldn't play the game. We should play a different game, because that's what this game that's what it hangs its hat on, these stunt points. And if most of the time we generate them, we ignore them, then there's no point playing the
Yep.
systems. I saw you kind of raise your hand, Chris. There, is that something you wanted to talk about?
So are the stunt points they give you mechanical bonuses, or is it more
Yes.
narrative bonuses?
There's a little bit of both, but there is a lot of mechanical. Essentially, the value of the stunt die is how many points you have, and then you have a menu of options. And there's 1 cost stunt points, 2 point cost stunt points, and you can mix and match. You could just do a 6-1, which is usually like the most powerful, where you could do 2 2s, a 3 to 2 and a 1. And then again, there's stunt points that work for exploration. Again, like you are able to ambush someone, you get through quicker, you find something like a shortcut, or you find an object, or there's something for social interactions, exploration, combat, and then spell casting actually has its own, but it's basically spell casting and combat. I don't think there's any outside of combat spell casting. It's like you get to instantly cast another spell, or there's additional magical residue that kind of creates like an armor effect, and for the next round you get +1 armor class or damage reduction. But it's essentially mechanically focused.
Okay. So the second GM you said did better with those.
Yes.
Was he now did everybody else at the table already know how to play it, or were they all learning the system?
I think everyone there had some experience. My inclination is that the adventure he was running was a little bit better, because they both ran adventures that were provided to them by the company. But I think the first one was a little bit more a couple ideas on a napkin, versus the second one was more like an actual adventure that is being developed as part of this new Freeport release. So I'm thinking that adventure was more thought out of, when we asked for this role, what might happen. And it was just a little bit more well designed for that purpose, is my reading into it.
All right. I was trying to, I guess, lead myself into, in a way. Star Wars uses the narrative dice, like you said. You have advantages, threats, that kind of stuff. I've always found if somebody's new to the game, to start with them and get them focused on just mechanically, this is what it does.
Right.
Oh, you have an advantage? You can pass a blue die on. Then I will kind of help narrate that. And then as they start grasping it more, I kind of let them narrate more about what it looks like. Because really, it's 90% of the people that play are worried about what's my mechanical advantage or bonus by getting this special thing. They're not thinking about, oh, I shot at the bad guy and, I got an advantage. I want him to fall down. They want to know, what is the mechanical advantage of that? So I was more curious how he did that. But if they've all played, then
I do think that was still probably part of it, that when they came up, there was more of like, this is what you could do, versus they're just like not important. The one other thing I did want to mention, because we just recently had an episode, we talked about skill challenges, and the GM didn't like articulate what they were doing, but just like paying attention, I kind of figured out. We at one point were doing an investigative skill challenge, and the way that worked is if you made your check and were successful, the value of your stunt die was how many points towards progression you made. So if you rolled a 6 on the stunt die, but you barely passed, you still got 6 tick marks towards the overall success of the challenge, which I think is an interesting way. It's another way to make the stunt die important, but it doesn't feel thematically tied to the system. Because like if I barely passed, then that's just 1 die in there. I'm not sure that I loved it, but I just wanted to bring it up since we did do an episode about skill challenges. And that's apparent. I don't remember. I've read the book, but it's been so long. I don't know if that's like the way it tells you to do it, or if that was this DM's version, but that was how they were sort of mechanically tracking overall success. It wasn't number of successes. It was quantity or quality of overall success based on the stunt die. So if you got a 6 on your stunt die and I got a 6, that was 12 points towards whatever the goal was. We ended up passing, so I don't know the math behind it, because he didn't share that. It was just, I could tell that's what, because he kept saying, what's your stunt die, even though we didn't get stunt points. He was asking that for everybody in that scene. So, all right. So anything else on Fantasy Age? Otherwise, I'd like to move on.
No, I think I'm good.
All right. I got to play the Sentinel Comics RPG, and this has been on my bucket list for years now.
Okay.
People who are familiar with me probably know I love superhero RPGs. It's like my second favorite genre of RPGs after heroic fantasy. My first RPG ever was Redbox D&D. My second was Marvel Superheroes. I'm always looking for a new superhero RPG because I've yet to find one that just really feels right. I still play the old Marvel game because I think it's fun. I'm currently running the new Marvel game, think it's fun, but it's not great. It's just good. So I was very interested in playing Sentinels. If you are familiar with industry stuff, part of the tariffs, that whole company kind of got shut down. So there's some question about whether the rest of the Kickstarter stretch goals are going to get finished, if things that are already promised are going to happen. That's neither here nor there. I got to play the game, and it did some things that I thought were very interesting. It's somewhat based off the Cortex system. Are either of you familiar with Cortex?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So for those of you at home that may not know, it's a dice pool system. You have different sort of columns or categories. Like you have like powers, you have abilities, you might have traits or essences. They're all kind of called something different. You might have like a equipment or an icon, that kind of thing. And each one is rated differently, and you grab that die. So my leadership might be a D6, my beam blast might be a D10, and my quality might be a D4. I roll them all together. And generally it's whatever the middle number is, not the die, but the result. So my D4 may roll a 4, and my D12 may roll a 1, and my D6 rolls a 5. So my D4 becomes my mid at a 4. I think I did that correctly. And then that's kind of determines the value of your attack or your resistance or the thing that you're trying to do. There are certain abilities that will say, your max and your mid, or your min and your mid, or your mid times 2. There's all these different sort of ways that you can mix and match the numbers, but it's usually what you do. You roll 3 dice, and the middle value, whatever die, causes that number, is all that matters. And there's really no narrative to whether it was your leadership or your power or your essence or your weapon. You can narratively flavor that if you go, oh, my weapon's the reason why I succeeded, but mechanically there's no difference. The other thing that this system does is you have thresholds. So it can be both based on health. So when I'm fully health, I'm in the green. When I've been wounded, I go to yellow. And when I have only a little bit of health left, I'm in the red. And also, as the scene progresses, you start in green. And if like turn 4, you go into yellow, and turn 7, you go into red. And this is an escalation that both unlocks new abilities. So I played Gambit, and I could do certain abilities when we were in the green zone. I could do certain abilities when I was in yellow, and I could do certain when I got in red, and they generally got more powerful. But the world became more dangerous. So as we escalated, civilians were more likely to be endangered. Property damage was more likely to happen. So like if there's a countdown, there's a bomb that's going to explode. If we let it get into red, it might explode no matter what we do. So it's something that's like, cool, I got this new power, but also now it's actually harder to do the thing. So I really like that as a concept. But the thing I thought was most interesting, and then I'll shut up in a minute and you guys can talk. Sorry, Chris knows how this is with me. Is when you're fighting bad guys, some bad guys, I may forget the terminology, but they're like villains. Then you have like minions and mooks, and then you have like lieutenants. And so let's say you have a lieutenant, and you can say they are a D12, and you physically put a D12 next to them. If I attack them and I hit them, they have to roll a D12, and it's just kind of like a save. And if they are successful, nothing happens. They're still a D12. If they fail that save, they're a D10. Next time I attack them, if they pass, they're still a D10. If they fail, they go to a D8. And you basically have to walk them down that ladder until they are D4, and then they get gone. Mooks, if they pass the save, they go down, which is kind of weird. So basically a mook at a D4 is once you hit them, they're gone. It seemed counterintuitive, but it made sense when I saw it in that regard, because I think they're more likely to pass, which means they're more likely to get gone. So mooks are actually easier to defeat. But I may be confusing that a little bit. But I thought that was a very interesting way. There's some strategy involved in like how you build it, because it doesn't matter if you have to hit them 5 times. So there's no point in like Super Saiyan hitting them, because you're just going to knock them down 1 die. Main villains have hit points. So you want a Super Saiyan, the main bad guy, but the lieutenants and the minions, you got to whittle them down. And it does sort of create this interesting sort of stratagem of who can do what power because of what rank they're in. Do you have something that can hit multiple people? Because then you could hit the mooks and the lieutenants and just bring them down one level with like a minor thing. The thing that we kept doing is we had an ability, or I had an ability, a couple other people did too, where if you got attacked, you could divert that attack, absorb some of it, but throw some of it back. And so we kept doing that to the lieutenants. So we were walking them down their ladder on their turns. And then when it came back around to us, we could finish them off. I thought all of that was super cool. I have now played enough Cortex to say I do not like that system. I've played Supernatural Cortex. I've played Marvel, the mid Marvel superheroic Cortex. I played this. I find that it's actually harder for me, and this totally could be a Michael thing, to figure out what's my mid number than it is just to do the math. Like my brain struggles with, well, my D4 is my smallest die, and my D8 is my middle die, and my D12 is my biggest die. But once you roll them, it's only the results that matter. And I was struggling to be like, wait, which is my middle one? Which is my max? What? And maybe on a campaign where we put a little more narrative weight in, oh, you succeeded, but it was your weapon that succeeded, or you succeeded, but it was your essence that succeeded. And like going, well, why did that work? And really kind of playing that in might be more enjoyable. But from a strictly mechanical level, I did not like it that much. So I will shut up now. You may talk.
So I guess,
Chris.
Go ahead, Chris.
I say I've played Cortex only a handful of times, so I can't speak too much to the mechanics. I do remember the last time I played it, it was a Stargate. We were a SG team, and that went really well. I feel like they did something similar to what you were talking about with, because we were fighting basically dinosaurs. So the small dinosaurs, just one hit. The bigger they got, just there weren't hit points, but it was just you had to hit them a certain number of times. Mm-hmm. I don't remember if they used dice or if it was just you hit it once, you hit it once, type thing. How did you like though the setting? You said Sentinels.
So you said it was Sentinels, but we played Marvel heroes. So I was Gambit. Another gentleman was Cyclops. We also had Agent Ghost Spider, and then we had Agent Venom. So it was a Marvel themed game, but it was using the Sentinel rules.
Gotcha. I was thinking you meant the Sentinels of the Multiverse.
So
they made a role-playing game.
Yeah, that's the game. So it is that game system, but we were using Marvel characters built in that system.
Interesting. Why not just use the characters that the game comes with?
Maybe because people aren't as familiar with that. Like most people know Marvel or DC. Because I even like when I play Mutants and Masterminds, most of the time I play that, it's someone has built Marvel characters in that system. But I would have played anything, but because I just wanted to try that system. But yeah, it was Marvel. I didn't know that till I showed up.
Yeah, I can say when I've played various Supers games at smaller cons or whatever, that has largely been the case. So like even playing GURP Supers, where you could do kind of anything you really wanted to, people set up the Marvel universe, or I've even set up the DC universe with GURPS, and I've set up the DC universe with Palladium Supers or what have you as well. So it's not infrequent that people just say, I really like DC, but I like this game system, so I'm going to run DC in this game system or what have you.
Okay.
So I guess since you're playing the Marvel characters, Marvel world story scenario, that seems like that was pretty good, but it was really the mechanics that kind of didn't sing for you because of the more just the challenge of navigating it and whatnot.
Yeah. There was some system mastery. Again, I didn't know the system, so maybe had I known it better, I would feel better. If I could do the math, or not even the magic, more like a logic puzzle in my head quicker, maybe I would have enjoyed it more. And I didn't hate it, don't get me wrong, but I didn't love it.
Yeah. I know I've played a couple games where it's like, okay, this story is really cool. This GM is really good. I'm involved with this. I'm having fun at the table with the characters, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I could do without that system for whatever reason. And, I would say Middle Earth role-playing MERPs of old was a lot like that. Like by the time we got through the 3.5 weeks and 14,000 hours of character building and all the filling out all the little chits and dangling chads for each individual half ration or quarter ration or whatever it was. Like had this really cool character, and we had basically rewritten the Silmarillion just to be able to play in the first game. And by the time we got done with that, it's like, let's just watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail again. And we never really got beyond that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good with that. That was kind of like my feeling. Like this was a lot to get to the point where I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. I had fun building a character, and we had fun being together.
Right.
I just don't know if like a long-term campaign. No.
I think I mentioned it when we did the Origins recap, but I played a Mutants and Masterminds game there, and it was the best game of the con. I absolutely loved that game, and it was Marvel superheroes, but they all used Hero Forge to build the characters. I don't think I could play that game unless someone built the characters for me, because they are so complex, and they're way to, like, you have to know what, there's a system mastery requirement, I feel, in that system to make sure that you could build a rogue that makes sense with that Toad, with that Sabretooth, with that Wolverine. If someone does that for me, like here's just like a collective of characters, which, on the internet there probably is, I think that could be a really fun system to dig into. But on my own, that is way over my head.
Yeah.
All right.
How did the system capture the feeling of the characters, though? Like, did you feel like you were really playing Gambit?
I mean, most of the powers were flavored pretty well as far as like, what you did made sense for the character. I could throw my cards, and the cards did different things. There was one I thought was pretty interesting. It was just use your power in a unique way. It was like very broad, and you could get like a particular bonus. And I used that one once to charge something under me to like fire me, like I was on a metal plate and it shot me over so I could move through the battlefield. So I really liked that. It was just like a very like, insert your creativity here, get this bonus. But again, comparing to Mutants and Masterminds, I actually felt like Mutants and Masterminds felt more like I was playing the character than I did here. Again, maybe it was just my lack of experience, but it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It was like, okay.
All right. Fair enough.
All right. So my next game was the one I was most excited going in for. It was Savage Eberron. So anyone who knows me, I love Eberron. Is by far my favorite D&D setting, and it's not even close. It's like Eberron's way up here, and everything else is down here. And my own homebrew is in the middle, which is heavily flavored by Eberron. I love Eberron. And Savage Worlds is kind of my go-to con game. Like, I don't know that I've ever had a bad Savage Worlds game. It's such a fun, and by the box, fast, fun, and furious. Like if you have anyone that knows what they're doing at all, you're going to have a good time. I got to play, I think it was last GenCon or not the most recent Origins, but the one before. I got to play in an Eberron game. It was probably the first time I ever played with 7 players that I actually enjoyed it. Like, that's kind of like a trigger for me. Like, if it's more than 6, I won't do it. If it's 6 and the GM lets the 7th in, I kind of get frustrated with it. But I played this Eberron game. It was a blast. It was so fun. It was the same guy running it from that other time. I remembered his name. I wrote it down, and I saw it was Savage Worlds. It was Eberron. I am there, and it's this guy. It was all 6 of us were RPG Academy folks. We had one person who got in like super early on the list. We had all 6 tickets. I was ready to go. He did let a 7th person sit down that wasn't one of us. Didn't ruin the game, but I was a little bit like, oh, come on, man. We could have had the whole game. Anyway, he did a lot of the same tricks that he did last time, which I've already mentioned. He uses maps and minis. He has 1,000 little doodads to like track stun and damage and wounds. He had this big 3D printed airship that we got to jump on. I mean, just everything that you could think of to make it an immersive experience. But he's also very fast and flexible. He goes over his rules, and he's like, everybody being safe, telling a cool story, following the rules in that order. Those are his rules to live by. So again, I'm 100% on board there. He did some interesting things with Eberron. He took Eberron and moved it, I think, 100 years in the future, and it kind of became Shadowrun. So all the different houses kind of became corporation conglomerates. They kind of ran everything. The Civis family created like a neural link and then it kind of became the internet. And so we were essentially runners in Eberron. And I'm not the biggest Shadowrun fan, but it kind of worked for me because it was Eberron. And just, we were just having so much fun. And we got to do like comic book sort of stuff. Like in my head, we were playing through a comic book story. The thing that I remember best, because I did it, and I'm an arrogant, self-aggrandizing a-hole, is the airship was trying to pull away. And so I grabbed the rope and I pulled a Captain America from Winter Soldier. I had the airship in one hand, and I had the dock in the other, and I was holding it so that all my other people could get on the ship. And then once that happened, I let go of the dock and used the tension on the rope to like catapult me, slingshot me, whatever, up and onto the ship. And as I was flying over, I shot the main bad guy with like my magic shotgun. That's exactly the sort of stuff I want to do at a con game. I want to do that level sort of stuff. And he's like, sounds awesome. It cost me like 4 bennies, but I got there and it just was so much fun. Absolutely loved it. I think I mentioned this one before. It was kind of like a skill challenge. And the way that he ran that is he had 16 tarot cards he laid out, or maybe it was 20, it's like 4 rows of 4, 5 rows of 5. And we knew there was a specific card we were trying to find. It was the goal, and it was hidden on the top row. We didn't know where. It was one of the 5 at the top. And every time we went to a tarot card, he would flip over, and based on the image, it was a certain type of challenge. And some of them, and we never got into combat, but if it was a combat challenge, there were certain skills we could use. If it was an investigative challenge, there were certain skills we could use. If it was a social encounter, there were certain skills. So he would kind of lay out like, oh, there's a missing goblin child, and if you help the goblins find it, they'll help you get through this part. Or, oh, here's a troll who won't let you through unless you flatter them or bribe them in some way. And so you just would navigate through, hit the tarot cards, get the challenge. One person would take lead. All the other people could help or not. Kind of standard stuff, but it just worked visually because you got to see the cards and you got to choose which way you went. And when you failed, the card got turned sideways and it was now blocked off. Like, it's perfect con game for 6 people. And it was a really good con game for 7.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. When you describe what you did with the whole Winter Soldier bit and pulling the ship, it dawned on me that there is no system that does that other than Savage Worlds. Like, possibly Aliens, because you can do some things with the challenge dice and taking on extra stress or whatever. But really, Savage Worlds, the ability to have exploding dice, the ability to spend bennies, the way that system is actually designed is to be able to do those cool things. I think with Momentum and a few other things, you might be able to maneuver something similar to that in Star Trek, but not really, because the turn system doesn't really work the same way. Savage World is really the perfect system for that style of moment. Different games are good at different kinds of moments. That is one of the ones where, whether you're playing Deadlands or a Deadlands equivalent, whether you're doing an Alien-like story, one of friend of the show, Pete Saloom, wrote the Hyperion. I am so messing up that name. I apologize, Peter. I'll actually get that, make sure we get that on the notes or whatever. But he's written 2 really nice Savage Worlds adventures. One is very Alien-like. I haven't read it because I want to play in it. After playing in his Deadlands game, I made the choice to not read that, and I'm waiting for somebody to run that game so I can play in it. That's how much I love his work, and I love Savage Worlds. So, and I've played several different Savage Worlds games at this point, but it rarely misses. It's just a really good game and a really good system.
Yeah, I do think there are other games so the way that I would run that in basically any system is all of that was narrative fluff. So I got to go first in initiative. It just worked out that way. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to hold the airship. I guarantee if I hadn't done that, everybody else could have still got on. Like, he wasn't actually leaving so fast that no one would have got on, but I chose to take my turn and did that narratively because it made sense. And then once I decided to get on the ship, I had enough movement to just get on the ship. I'm the one that chose to say, well, can I use the slingshot thing? So everything that happened could have happened strictly by the rules mechanically with just no fanfare. But by saying, can I do this and can I make it look this way, it just becomes so much more epic. And that's kind of how I want all my games. When I run D&D, I want you to do the same thing. Like mechanically, you went here and stuck this thing with your sword, but I want you to describe it in this jump on the chandelier, do a backflip, slide down the banister, kick the ogre into the fire, and it's going to do the same amount of damage or probably more than your sword would have, because that's what I want you to do. And I do think Savage Worlds lends itself to those types of moments. The bennies help. So if you're trying to do something really wild, you got a little extra there. But I really think it comes down to the GM going, I love that. I want to see that too. Let's find a way to make that happen where it doesn't become a cheat where I can just do anything. Like I'm Superman now, but nothing happened that couldn't have happened in a really just watered down way. But we all worked together to make it epic, and everyone was doing cool stuff. That was the coolest thing I did. There were lots of other people who did lots of really cool things, but I wanted to talk about mine.
Yeah.
I think what you just described is sometimes one of the hardest things for a GM to do at a con game. Let the players just do the thing. I think sometimes GMs start thinking about, well, mechanically, what would I have you roll versus just saying, okay, you've got a hold of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, everybody's going to get on the ship anyways.
Right.
Who cares how it gets there? If I was running Star Wars, you have light and dark side points. I might say to you, if you're like, oh, I want to grab onto there, I go, spend a light side point so that way the rail doesn't give way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say to make sure you can do it, to make sure the rail doesn't break off. Keep it simple. I might say make an athletics check to make sure you don't lose your grip. And then even if you failed, I might say, okay, you're holding on, but as people are jumping, your grip is starting to give. I would try to describe that more narrative as everybody else is jumping on and build that up. So maybe Lewanika is the last one to go. And I'm like, oh, that's when Michael's grip breaks. The gap's now a little further. Go ahead and roll your athletics check to jump on or whatever you're doing to get on.
I think the key to that is that is where the player, I'm tooting my own horn here, and the GM are working in concert because they both know what the other one's doing. And they're like, I can't just give you this because it will feel cheap, but I want it to happen. So we're going to add in the most mechanically simple, easiest to pass thing. And if it does go wrong, you're not going to die. Like I wasn't going to fall off the platform and die. Like when I first grabbed the rope, I assumed that I would end up tangled in the rope, hanging underneath the airship as it flew away. Like that was my first thought, but it didn't happen that way. So that's when I came up with the other thing. I expected that I was going to be in a bad situation, but I trusted that GM that he wasn't just going to go, oh, you fell to your death. Your character's dead. We were going to find a way to keep it being epic, even if I failed or succeeded. And I think that's what you're saying, Chris. Same thing is like, we're going to make this super cool. I'm going to give you some points of failure, but the failure is just going to make it more interesting and not just punishing to you for trying the cool thing.
Yeah, you're basically what we're all talking about here is different variants on allow your players to fail forward. And if I switch this from the GM side, like how to run a great con game or epic moments in con games, switch it to the player side, players really need to get out there and say, what can I do to make this epic and work with GMs and give the GM something cool to play with. Because GMs at cons, especially ones who are relatively new or even very experienced, they're looking for the moments to make this game, this table, the epic moment of somebody's entire con.
Yep.
There are 7 people at your table, and the only thing going through that GM's mind is, my God, I want this to be the best game that one of these people has today.
Yep.
And they're waiting for that moment. So as a player, what you want to do is you want to provide the fuel for the fire that is going to give the DM what they need to make that the epic game of the con. And sometimes it's kicking in the door. Sometimes it's putting your finger in the chest of the orc at the bar. Sometimes it's breaking down and crying when the NPC dies and then coming up with a great soliloquy and rushing up to the bad guy you have no business hitting. Sometimes it takes those, as a player, doing those types of things to create those moments. And every now and then you might do one and it wasn't the right GM for it. It won't be the greatest experience, but more times than not, you're going to do that, and that GM's going to love and live for that moment, and you and everybody at the table is just going to remember that as the moment of the con, if not the moment of gaming. You'll just remember, like, that's what I remember from Gen Con 2025 was that moment. That's what players need to give to GMs, and that's what GMs can really build off of and give back.
I think my tip to GMs on this one would be if that's the type of game you're running, tell players that. Like off the rip, Ron was like, these are my 3 rules. Like, say, in my head, this game is going to play out like this sort of movie or a comic book. Like, I want you running up falling bricks. Like, imagine there's a stone wall collapsing. I want to see your character jumping stone to stone, climbing the brick. Is that realistic? No. That's the game we're playing today. Or, some example just to be like, these are the types of scenes that I want you to see, and the game is going to help us get there so that players understand it. Because I knew this GM, I'd played with him before. I knew exactly what he was wanting to do, and he delivered, exceeded my expectations. But had that been a game I didn't know, I don't know that I would have done that. Like the other players were doing stuff, but I don't know that it would have hit me like, oh, I should do this. So just set the stage. Like, I'm not saying give them every example, like shoehorn their creativity, but give them an example of this is the sort of game we're playing off the rip, so they know that. Chris, it looked like you were trying to jump in there again.
Oh, I think Lewanika hit what I was going to say. Okay.
I will move on then. So my next game was Grimwild, cinematic fantasy role-playing. And the description alone I was in. I love cinematic storytelling, as I just described. My favorite moment of that game was something very cinematic, but I prefer fantasy over any other genre. Had no idea what I was in for. I showed up. This one was interesting. Again, I was talking to the GM and some other players. Apparently this is it was actually, it won an ENnie, I think, for best free adventure or free rules. There was a crowdfunding campaign. It was very successful. But the person who created it kind of has fallen off the face of the earth. No one knows if they're just like taking the money and ran, or if they're like spiraling because of the success. Like, they were all trying to be very positive that they're just something's going on and, they're not doing anything untoward. I don't know. So please don't take that. This is all just, rumor. But it felt a lot like Daggerheart mixed with PBTA a little bit more. The adventure was very interesting. I don't want to get into that because I'll be drawing things on napkins for hours. But basically, most things had a die pool. So like you might have healing at a D6. You try to heal me, you roll your D6s. Any of those dice that rolls a 1, 2, or 3 are gone. And then you have the remaining in your pool. So if you roll all 4s and 6, 4, 5, 6s, then you still have 6 dice. But if you roll a bunch of 1s and 2s, then basically that power has exhausted itself. And until you get to a rest, which we played a 1-shot, we didn't rest, then they don't come back. And that's kind of how like all the powers worked. The better you roll, the more you keep. The worse you roll, the more you lose. And you sort of have this, everybody had their own pool of different abilities that they would use. And then, you had the things where you could turn that 3 into a 4, or you can keep 2 even if they roll 1s, or that kind of thing. If you're trying to do something, you're just going to roll some D6s. Most of the time you only need 1 success, which is anything over a 4. But if the DM thinks that this is particularly difficult, they have the ability to add in what are called thorns, and those are D8s. So you're like, oh, you're doing something really stupid. That's 2 thorns. So I roll my pool, and those D8s, if they roll a 7 or an 8, they can take away your highest die. So that 6 you just rolled's gone. And so now you only have the 5 and 4s that are left. So that may not be a success or enough. And again, I played it one time. I'm probably screwing up some of the rules, but it was pretty interesting. And it was very epic and cinematic. Like everybody got to describe what they were doing in these over the top ways. And then we'd roll our dice pool. That is definitely one that I want to, much like Daggerheart, this is something I want to play again, and maybe even will seek out the rule set. I think it's free. It was very interesting. I may not be describing it well, but the receding dice pools, the ability to add in thorns and how thorns worked, like I thought it was very, very interesting. I played a wizard, And part of it's kind of like the PBTA thing is like you had all these different things like, what are your clothes and what do you look like? And you could like just circle different adjectives to kind of flesh out your character. And you had like 5 abilities. You got to pick 2, and those are the 2 that you could do, which again feels very PBTA to me. But my character had these 2 little orbs that would just sort of float around and do things. They could they really weren't mechanical, but they were just like narrative. They could do a little bit of stuff. We ended up fighting a basilisk, which is, creature that turns you into stone. And so I rolled an ability that let my eyes go dark and the orbs became my eyes, which it was not really anywhere on my sheet. But I'm like, can I do that? The GM's like, yes, you can. And so I was telling other people what to do because I was basically immune because I was up looking down from above. And so I never made eye contact. Again, that was exactly the sort of cinematic thing I was hoping for. The GM and the system let me do it. I definitely want to try this game again.
Nice.
Excellent.
I'm always down with games that borrow from the PBTA flavor, feel, and mechanical bent. I always feel like, especially at con games, because you get to personalize a pre-gen very nicely and very quickly with PBTA, you get a playbook. There's a bunch of boxes. You check the boxes and you're done. It feels like you built a character for you because you did, and you didn't spend hours doing it. And the rules are, generally speaking, simple enough to flow quickly into the game. Like you don't have to do too much to get into it and get going. So I love those kinds of games.
One thing I just remembered, like one of the ways that you can affect, it's kind of like Fate in a way too. You have like attacks and overcomes and assists. When you debuff someone, it's called a hinder. And my magic was flavored as like ice. So at one point I like basically just made ice on the floor and caused them to fall down. And that was like, it was mechanically a hinder, but narratively I created an ice field that caused people to slip and fall. So again, it's very cinematic and narrative, which is exactly the sort of thing I like. Chris, any thoughts on that one?
I mean, it sounds like it's a pretty simple system, which is good for con games, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The more you have to teach people, sometimes the more bogged down it can be. So, but bring it to a catacon. Bring it to the faculty retreat.
I'm thinking about, because we don't do a lot of RPG stuff there, but this will not be one we could test out. But I got 3 games left. I know we've already been here for an hour, and people are certainly tired of hearing me talk. But rather than breaking this 2, I want to plow through because one of them will take a little bit. The other 2 will be pretty quick. So I tried out the new Arkham Horror RPG. Are either of you fans of the Arkham Horror world and like the card game?
I am familiar with the name, but I'm not too familiar with the IP itself.
Okay, Chris.
I do.
Okay.
I like the Elder Sign game. I like the
living card game. I think Arkham it is.
The Elder Sign's a dice game. I like. There's a couple other board games that are the Arkham Horror. There's Mansions of Madness and stuff like that. I enjoy those. Yeah.
So I'm sure there's some nuance that I'm going to lose or misunderstand, but it's kind of like Call of Cthulhu. You're like 1920s, 1930s. You're not action heroes. You're just normal people, and you're in a world where there's like eldritch god and magic and stuff, and it's like weird stuff is happening. But the game itself actually borrows some of the mechanical elements from the other games. Like I'm kind of familiar. It's like a card game, but it's also like a board game where you like move place to place and you try to collect cards, I think. And like you have to like, fight cultists or like turn off eldritch signs so portals don't open. It's been a long time since I played it. But you get these little tokens for like health damage. You get these little tokens for like mental anguish or like, insanity. So on your character sheet, you literally have 6 spaces where you put 6 die 6. So you have 6 dice on your character and they're in these spaces. If you take damage, you replace one of those die with a little heart or I think it's like a little blood icon, which matches exactly my memory of the game. If you get insanity, you put that down, but then you put a die on top of it, but it's a different color die. And I think the game uses black and green. So you still have access to those if it's insanity, but if those roll 1s, bad things happen. So as the course of the game goes, you might lose, your 6 might go down to 4 because you've been damaged, and 2 of those 4 might have the insanity token. So whenever you're rolling, you have less of a chance of success, and you have a higher chance that you're going to have some sort of sanity issue. And I just like the tactile nature of that. Generally, you have all your dice. When it comes back to your turn, you get them back. So it's like a pool, but if you don't have any, you can't use reactions. So like if someone shoots at me, which happened in this game, if I didn't save a D6 to roll, possibly to dodge, I just got hit. And it was just purely based on their roll and their whatever weapon they were using. So there is a little bit of strategy, like, do I use everything to try to be successful, or do I hold dice for a reaction? When you get damaged, can you get healed? I was a talented violinist who was hired to go on a gambling boat, which wasn't actually gambling because it was illegal. But once we got on the river, it was a gambling boat. And then there was a cursed artifact causing people to commit heinous crimes. But then as soon as the crime was over, they're like, yeah, I did it. So we were like doing a murder mystery when people kept confessing to the murder. It was really weird. It was a ton of fun. I really liked the mechanics of how the system worked. Let me correct that. I thought it was very novel how the system works. I didn't love it, but I did buy the $60 campaign setting for the mystery because I really liked the story. I'm probably going to pull it out and run it in a different system. It's called Terra Antarctica. So it's like a frozen wasteland horror story, which again, Thing is like my favorite movie ever. So I'm like, okay, I want that mystery, but I'm not sure I'll run it in that system. But I really enjoyed the ambiance of that system. Maybe a few more times playing, I might fall in love with the system. I didn't hate it, and I did think there was some novelty to it, but I also didn't love it. But I think people who are familiar with the IP already might have a bit more of an already built-in investment. All the tokens, the character sheets, all the little like scraps of paper that you get, top shelf, high end, almost like Beatles and Grimm level stuff in this box set, high production value. So if you like that sort of game or that particular game, this is an easy, let's dive into this one.
Yeah. As you talk about pulling that story out, I'm thinking that would be cool to do that as a Dread game. Like that could be a lot of fun. Sign me up for that.
Good.
I like games that have the insanity mechanic. I sometimes get bored with just straight hit points because the world's not just straight physical damage. So having those type of rules, I think, is awesome. I would like to play it. All the little descriptions you were just talking about. I mean, Eldritch Horror I own. The symbols you just talked about are in there. Elder Sign I own. I've played Mansions of Madness. All those little, they're red and blue in my games, so they might be the same. But
yeah, red and blue, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right up my alley.
I did buy the starter set too. Maybe at the faculty retreat.
Yeah. I do like a murder mystery. It doesn't always have to be kick in the door and kill the goblin. Sometimes the goblin's already dead. You got to figure out what killed it. I blame Lewanika.
Yeah.
Well, generally, I mean,
yeah, I love the genre of like eldritch horror, murder mystery, normal people in a messed up world where you're not all. I mean, again, I love action heroes too, but when I'm playing like an investigative game, I do prefer more of a we're just in over our heads type of a thing. So I don't play a lot of Call of Cthulhu, but when I play at conventions, I usually have a really good time because for the most part, those adventures are usually really well written to be investigative stories versus like a D&D module where you're not really playing in the wheelhouse of the game. Like D&D is a kick in the door, kill the goblin thing, and you're doing a murder mystery. I'll just cast Speak with Dead. It can be done. I like doing it, but it takes a lot more work. Well, like Call of Cthulhu and Arkham Horror, these are designed for those experiences, and that is an experience I seek out. So I'm definitely interested. Again, I did buy the starter set, and I bought this big campaign box set. So if not Faculty Retreat, maybe a Catacon, it would definitely fit in with our themes of a Catacon. If I don't run it, maybe we can get someone in the faculty to offer it as a session. and
Yeah.
you get to play it. Or we can maybe play it online, but play it for the show, or just a funsy game.
We can play it for the show, or we've got plenty of patrons who would jump right in. I'm playing in a Delta Green game, which is just that. My character is an NCIS agent. Because I love that show. I love that type of thing.
You'd lose a little bit of the tactile nature of having, like, unless we could find a way to like share actual physical character sheets and props. So this is one of the games where I think playing online, it would be bad, but it would lessen some of the impact of those cool props. And again, I'm not the person that knows how to like make them digital type of a thing, but definitely, I mean, I'll jump to the end. Going to GenCon has made me want to I want to start playing like monthly, even if it's one shots, campaign. I need to get back into playing RPGs because I'm not playing that. I'm running a couple of games, but they're very infrequent. I think we played like 8 times over a year and a half at the library because of our schedules. I want to get back into some regular gaming. I miss it. So maybe this is it. Maybe someone else will run it. I'll run it. But anyways, I'm almost done. Speaking of Dread, next game was Dread. I love Dread. Everyone knows absolutely one of my favorite games to play, con games. I run all the time. We played a Dread game that was almost all RPG Academy folk as well. There were 7 players. 5 of us were RPG Academy folk. And it was a Star Wars Dread. This was the first time any of my friends have actually played real Dread. They've always played my version of Dread, which generally means you're playing a character that you already know. So they didn't do the questionnaires. If you never played actual Dread, it relies heavily on filling out. Each character has a questionnaire. You take like 20 to 30 minutes to fill these out. Like, it's a very intensive part of the process. It helps you figure out who your character is. It sets up tension between you and other characters. And then the GM reads through each of them and like sort of figures out, who do you have relationships with? Who do you have conflicts with? And then they use those to build the story in interesting ways. My number one complaint, too many players. We had 7 players. I get that's just how those cons work because they get money or they get reimbursement based on player hours. 7 players for Dread was just too many. It was still fun. GM did a great job, but 7 players was too many. What was kind of funny is it was 5 of us and then 2 other guys. When we were on a break, we were talking for a minute and I mentioned, I play Scooby-Doo Dread, and they both were like, "You run that? We've been trying to get into that for like 5 years." Because I usually run it at GenCon, and this year I didn't run anything. And they're like, "We always try to sign up." So they knew the game that I run, and they've been trying to get in. And we were like, "Hey, if you come to a Catacon, might be able to get you in." So hopefully we sold some Catacon stuff. It was I don't necessarily want to tell the story here because, again, I think this is a game they run regularly. But I'll share it with you off air and Lewanika too if you care. Mm-hmm. I know Chris runs Star Wars Dread at a Catacon. And I thought it was kind of an interesting setup. It might be something that you can use. The basic setup is that we were charged to go back to Endor 6 months after the Death Star because there was evidence that some sort of Imperial artifact survived the destruction and was now on Endor. So we were going back to Endor post Return of the Jedi.
Nice.
So, all right. And then my final game. This was a curveball. I was supposed to go to a different game that started at 10 a.m. on Sunday. But I got up early by happenstance. I was awake. I was showered. So I just happened to look and I saw there was a 13th Age 2nd edition game at 9 o'clock with 1 ticket open. So I'm already up, start a little earlier, get out a little earlier, made sense. So I made the switch. If I did not have an absolutely crushing time in Savage Worlds, this would have been my favorite game. It was amazing. It reminded me how much I love 13th Age. I've said it many times before on the other show. If our podcast had not launched right when D&D Next was coming out and we sort of connected ourselves to that for content, I think 13th Age would have been the game that I was playing for my home game. They were working on a 2nd edition. I backed it. I think I want to start playing second edition 13th Age. I freaking love this game. Going through, even though the characters were already created, but like the one unique thing, the backgrounds, how you do your skills. I fell in love with my character in the 20 minutes we spent, and I was more invested in that character than any other character the entire time. Even the Savage Worlds game where it was cool, but it was like action pulp adventure. This was more like, I don't want this character to die because I already loved them. And I loved the people we're playing with. And everyone came to play. They were all into it. We were doing narrative stuff. The icons came up and they were really cool. The adventure was a ton of fun. The GM did a great job. I mean, this game is the reason why I'm like, I want to play some game monthly now, because I'm like, this was so much fun. This was exactly the experience I wanted. I'm back in love with 13th Age. Bring it to me, baby. Let's go.
Excellent. Yeah, playing regularly is very helpful. I've been blessed with the fact, and they're virtual, but I get to play a couple different games with a month. I was on a live stream that finished. I'm still on one live stream that's on. That GM is running another game that's not live streamed. So I do get to play. Each of those is one session a month. So I get a couple. And sometimes I can't actually, because of my schedule, I don't get to play in all of them all the time, but I do get to play at least probably 2 or 3 games a month regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, so I'm constantly in that. So I feel you. And it was a while to get to that point. I actually had to let go of a few other things to be able to have the time to do that. And it's so needed. So needed.
It's just good for the soul. And again, I enjoy this. I enjoy the circle of friends I've made because of role-playing games is incredible. And why am I not, like we do the faculty retreats. Some of my favorite days of the year are faculty retreats. Catacon's favorite days of the year, GenCon. But it's not just the games, it's the people. And I just feel like I have this resource. I'm like Scrooge McDuck, who's just not swimming in his vault for some reason. Like I have this wealth of friends and games and people who care about it and they love it in the same sort of ways that I do. And I've just been ignoring it. Part of the reason why I'm not doing RPG Academy anymore is I was doing too much. It was starting to get stressful for me. So I'm trying to step back, but I'm not really feeling that time right now either. And like, I could be gaming. I could fit in a monthly game, either running or playing, or again, just doing one shots because we were doing that on the show for a while. We did the sample adventures. We would try new games. Yeah. Even if we don't record them, we could do that. We talked about me running my Dragonspine adventure for you and Josh. Like, let's do it. I'm ready now. Yeah. Let's go. I want to run and play some games. So let's make it happen, people.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of the things I love about doing class warfare for the Friday show is, at least while we're running through those, that is another game I get to play at least once a month. Yep. So, What
were you saying there, Chris?
It's been a while since I played 13 Age, so I'm curious to hear what the changes they made with it.
I don't really know between first and second. Like I couldn't tell you what the changes were. Like the setup seemed very similar. I think they may have rebalanced some of the abilities. I think we were 3rd level characters, so you still all of our attacks were 3D whatever because we were 3rd level. Mm-hmm. I could not tell you the difference between first and second, but just I had fun. So it was a fun system. Yeah, but I would need to get the books and actually read through them, or probably find a change log somewhere because I'm not that guy anyways. I probably couldn't tell you even if I read them side by side.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a good sign for the game. If you've got the 2 games and it plays smoother, easier, you have a good time, continue to have a good time, and you can't really notice the difference, that tells you that whatever needed to be done was done in an obtrusive way, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they didn't have to tear it down and rebuild it. I think there was just like tweaks and minor adjustments to make things flow better or just like balance them out, that type of thing. I even joined the 13th Age Discord today. It's like, maybe I can get in a one shot there. So yeah, I am all in on 13th Age right now. So we're already going long because I know I talked too much. I'm sorry, but I was excited. I had a great time. I also have to do this because I got a press badge. So obligations fulfilled. But any final questions for me before we wrap things up and get out of here tonight? Chris, any questions you have, any comments, anything you want to share with us about con going, your games, whatever?
What do you think is the biggest lesson you learned from this Gen Con?
Getting in games with my friends is huge. And that's something I did not avoid it, but I didn't care about it before. And I've had great Gen Cons, but even when the games weren't great, if they weren't great with my particular buddies, Brad and Michael and Jared, that elevated them. That's why I didn't have a bad game this weekend. I had a couple of games that if I'd been playing them just me, I might have said were bad. If that makes sense. So combining my friendship and my Gen Con into one bubble rather than two separate bubbles.
All right.
Nice. I'll go back to my original question. How does this Gen Con 2025 rank versus all the previous Gen Cons you've been to?
So that's tough for two reasons. One, the first Gen Con I ever went to changed my life. Talked about it before. Had never been to any cons. Now I go to all kinds of cons and run my own because that first Gen Con was like revelatory to me as a person. It opened my eyes to the way gaming could be. I didn't have to be shameful. I didn't have to hide in the closet. I could be loud and proud and shout, and started the podcast. Well, the podcast had already started, but like it really ramped up after Gen Con. I started a Catacon. Like it was life changing. So it's kind of hard to say anything other than that first one was the best will ever be. Also, I didn't run anything this year. Usually I do a panel on GMing, and usually I run Scooby-Doo Dread. And almost every year when we recap and people, we do something we do in our friend group as well as a podcast, favorite event, blah, blah, blah. My favorite events were always the things that I ran because, again, the person in me that likes to provide things for people to do. But when I have Dread players who love the Scooby-Doo Dread, and they, again, people trying to get into it. But when I do the panel and people come up, and I've had people say, thank you for doing this. I'm going to start gaming with my kid, or I really appreciate this, whatever the case may be. Those little moments of people saying thank you for running games, it's kind of hard to beat that, validation. But so having not ran anything, this year's a little bit harder to say, but I would probably say this is 2 behind 1 being the first year ever, which would have been 2013. I'm actually working on a thing to display all my badges currently. So it looks like 2013 was the first year. And I've only missed, the 1 year I missed was the year they didn't have it for COVID.
That's high praise. Well, thank you for going, for rolling the good dice on our behalf. And
I told everybody about Catacon, told everybody about Tabletop Journeys. I'm trying to get some people to listen to shows and join us here and come to a Catacon. So I was spreading the word. And I will say, actually, my 13th age game, there was one of the players that lives in Dayton. Did not know about us.
Nice.
So now
I saw that on Facebook.
Yeah, now they do.
I saw that on Facebook. I remember that.
Hopefully they will be coming. So yeah, and just again, because we're already running late, TTJ5, number 5, will get you $5 off your badges to a Catacon, which go on sale in 13 days. Catacon is in November 7th, 8th, and 9th in Dayton, Ohio. So if you're interested in coming, you can get a discount on regular badges, GM badges, or even the early bird. So they would be $10 off for you if you use that code in the first week. And the faculty retreat in Oxford, Ohio is 2 weeks from tomorrow. You kind of have to be in the know to go to that, but it's really easy to get in the know. Just join our Discord. Lewanika, where can they email if they want to email about this show or any of the other things that we're doing? What's the email for them?
That would be ttjourneys@gmail.com. Best place to email. We'll tell you all the things, and the links end up on the live broadcast about 24 hours afterwards. Okay. We'll get that added on so you can go to our Discord. If you're interested in supporting the overall show, we do have a Patreon as well. But we would love to have you join us. We run games monthly. It sounds like Michael wants to run some games as well. So we plan to have some more. And quite honestly, Michael, if you want to run 13 Age, I think that would be a great thing to add to the stable. I am confident we've got a few folks that would tip in for that. So keep us posted, and we'll definitely shout it out when we're ready to start rolling dice.
Fantastic. I apologize. The 16th of August, I will be at Woodburn Games in Cincinnati. They're doing a RPG spotlight for Action 12 Cinema. So they're going to have me, I'm going to run some games, help facilitate because it's a GMless game, sell some copies if people are interested. But Woodburn Games is an amazing indie RPG focused game store in Cincinnati. It's an amazing store. They've been very supportive of Catacon and RPG Academy. So if you're in Cincinnati, want to come, there is a $5 fee to but that goes to the store, not to me, to help support future of these events. But if you can learn all about Action 12 Cinema, you can get a copy under retail price from me at the door and learn and play my game, which I might have some exciting news about soon. But that's for another show. Chris.
Ooh.
The only place you can really find me is on Discord or on Smuggler's Blues, which would be on tomorrow. We'll be back as long as everybody's healthy. Some people came back from GenCon and they might not be healthy.
Yeah.
So
We had
we'll
one
see how we're doing.
COVID con crud already come up in our group. So far, I'm not having any issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's a con crud is a thing. Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
So, otherwise you see me here. I don't do a lot on social media anymore.
Good. I don't
Like
either.
most people.
I feel better not doing it. Truly.
And then
Yeah,
you'd see me at a
I do.
Catacon. Yeah, I'll be at a Catacon. I've got Star Wars Dread, I think Shadow of the Demon Lord, and I'll probably run Battlestar Galactica, the board game again.
Nice.
Yeah, so
enjoy
I am
this.
planning. Yeah, I'm planning on running some Star Trek Adventures 2E, some D&D. I will be running Everyday Heroes as well. So those are the 3 games that I am that I should be running for a Catacon weekend.
Nice.
It's going to be great.
Get that all set up. It's going to be a great time.
I actually
It's gonna
saw
be
on
a great
Reddit
time.
today, someone was posting like, hey, now that Gen Con's over, what other con should I be in? And someone, not me, mentioned a Catacon, and like 2 other people were like, oh yeah, I played. And there was like a little conversation going back and forth, almost all positive. There was a little bit like, they don't do as much board games, which is true. We're an RPG con. But I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't have to do this. This is not a second account. This is like real people talking about a Catacon. I was so excited.
So speaking of that, I wanted to let you know that last week while you were heading to Gen Con, we interviewed Sean Merwin.
Yes.
That episode aired last Friday on the show. Sean had mentioned to me that he was familiar with the Catacon. Tends to be something that he's generally doing at the same time,
Yep.
so he hasn't been able to go. But he said a number of his friends go to a Catacon every year. He has always heard amazing things about it. And, so that was kind of cool. I'm like, yep. Yeah. Good time.
Yeah,
Good times.
I'm sad that I missed that one, but again, I'm dealing with some medical issues, back pain, leg pain. So I was kind of on my way to see my doctor that day. But yeah, I've got 2 secret announcements we're going to hold for another episode that might be relevant to a Catacon coming up. But we're going to go again. It's already too late. So we're just going to sign off very quickly and say, remember folks, if you're having fun,
You're doing it right.
Doing it right.
doing it right. We'll see you next time. Bye.